Thank you, everyone. It's 2, so I think that it's a good time that we can start with the panel. My name is Pegi Pavletić. I am an executive committee member of the European Students' Union who is working on the topic of academic integrity. When I'm not working on the topics of academic integrity, I'm also a PhD student in medicinal chemistry at the University of Camerino in Italy. And today we actually have a panel of 4 student experts in the topic of academic integrity, or students who are working on the topics of academic integrity. And it's really my honor to present them, as I have met all of them through the past several weeks when we were preparing this panel. And I hope that today during this session you will be as inspired as I was when I first met all of them. So first student I'm going to present to you is Ozgur Çelik. Ozgur is a TEFL instructor at the University Balıkesir in Turkey. In his PhD thesis, he is investigating how creating a culture of academic integrity at K-12 level in schools can contribute to the EFL writing development. Additionally, he is developing an academic integrity policy writing tool for K-12 level schools, which he is also presenting at this very conference, if I'm not mistaken, on the 3rd day. So you are very welcome to join and to listen to Ozgur also further on. Ozgur, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Peggy, for the introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Ozgur. Then we have a second student who is Sven Sushan. And Sven has a very distinctive position as he serves as a student's ombudsperson at the University of Rijeka in Croatia since 2019. His role is to safeguard students' rights, represent students should they face disciplinary proceedings, and undertake to improve the overall state of students' rights and privileges in Croatia, but also in the local level in Rijeka. He is a 4th-year law student with an interest in constitutional law, human rights law, and legal theory. And also Sven is very active on the national level in Croatia, as he serves also as the coordinator of all of the students ombudsperson at the regional levels in Croatia. Sven?
Hello, everyone. It's quite a pleasure to be here with you today and discuss academic integrity and student issues.
Thank you, Sven. The next student I have on my list is Diana Sinek. She is in her 2nd term as the president of the National College of Ireland Students' Union. Her remit also includes the educational brief, which encompasses educational policies, academic integrity, representation, and students' disciplinaries. Throughout the last 2 years, Diana created various academic integrity campaigns, including animated videos, blogs, social media campaigns, all dedicated to academic integrity. She also organized academic integrity weeks while taking an active role in the Academical Integrity National Network, also in an effort to alert, inform, and educate students on the topic of academic integrity.
Hey everyone, thanks Peggy for that nice introduction. I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Diana. And last but not least, we have Megan. Megan is a general nursing graduate and the current education officer and deputy president of Trinity College Dublin Students' Union. She is also the vice president for academic affairs, elect for the Union of Students Ireland in this mandate, so 2021-2022. Having been a member of the Irish National Academic Integrity Network and working extensively on the transition to digital learning in this past year, she has worked with various cases of academic misconduct and the formation of mitigation measures to uphold the academic integrity in her community. Megan?
Hi everyone, I'm delighted to be here and I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to start this panel by asking you some questions. So maybe first to give all of our participants to get to know you, I will ask you individual questions and I think you can reflect. We can keep the questions, if you shall have any, for the end of this discussion. Okay, Megan, I see the message that you need to choose the English channel. Yeah, okay, perfect. So first question I would like to ask goes to Diana. Since you are very active in students' representation movement and you are acting as a students' representative in your local students' union, from your perspective, do you see the students regularly involved in the topic of academic integrity? Or is it still maybe regarded a little bit as the topic for the academic staff? So how is it promoted in your surroundings? What do you think?
Thank you, Peggy, for the question, and thanks again for having us here today to speak about such an important or have a discussion around such an important topic in our education system. If it's okay with you, can I start with the second part of the question first around promoting academic integrity, and then I'll go into perceptions? Yeah, perfect. So in terms of promotions on a local level, as you mentioned in the introductory piece, I've written blogs, hosted live sessions with academic staff to speak on academic integrity, research and avoiding plagiarism. During my time, I've created a number of videos, animated videos that explain academic integrity and have a student focus in it. And just looking at consequences at a local level, all in an effort to really reduce the disciplinary cases in my institute. On a national level, we recently also created a video, again, promoting academic integrity, and we also have a dedicated AI weeks, which we host conferences like these in different places around the country. I guess the point here is that the colleges and universities and institutes should be staying as creative as possible to try to promote academic integrity and include students in the discussions. Because very often students do come with a different perceptions. And just to move back to your first, the first point of the question around perceptions on academic integrity. As I mentioned, in the last 2 years, I've worked on many initiatives, but I think one of the most important ones, or most, the one that gave me the most insight into what students' views were around academic integrity was when I had the opportunity to chair a national focus group on academic integrity. This only happened a few weeks ago, and it was a number of students around all over the island of Ireland. And during the focus group, I really got to see what students, number one, understood what academic integrity is, and number two, what we can do from a national perspective or a national approach to combat academic integrity. What I found during this focus group is that we sort of need to go back to the basics and look at the terminology that is used. The terminology is such as, academic integrity, essay mills, contract cheating. This causes a lot of confusion between students and really pushes them away from the topic rather than, drives them in. Needless to mention that most students are aware of what plagiarism is, but in terms of these more, I guess, complex terms, even educational fraud, this is one thing that trips students up, and they associate it with academic staff more than they do with themselves. So going forward, what we found is that we need to be more positive in our messaging and show realistic reasons as to why students find themselves in these situations. So for example, it would be useful considering students speaking about their personal stories and using definitions to explain the different terminologies in this space. The other interesting piece that I found from students is that they also want institutes to be more responsible. So rather than placing blame on students and looking at the consequences, we need our institutes to take more responsibility on the matter and basically have a endorse rather than enforce attitude towards academic integrity.
Thank you, Diane. I think you made some really good points and really valuable for us as well. I would like to proceed with asking Megan one question. So Megan, you have some experience in promoting academic integrity actively. Why have you chosen to address this topic, and how did the students at the university staff respond to the initiative you have started?
Yeah, that's a good question. And then, truthfully, initially, I just took an interest in it because I hadn't heard an awful lot about it in my studies. I think plagiarism is something that students are aware of, but there isn't necessarily an awful lot of conversation around academic integrity as a concept, as a student. And it's certainly not something that I had experienced. I thought of plagiarism as copy and pasting from a journal and not referencing it correctly. And after I came into my current role and the more I looked into it, I realized that was just the tip of the iceberg. So I set out to ensure that as many students were part of this conversation as possible, and to raise awareness of the dangers that can come with that. Like essay mills are particularly prevalent now, I think, with the transition to the online world, I think more than ever. and they're incredibly sophisticated and a genuine threat to students. And I think Diana referenced it as well, as we really need to change that conversation from catching cheaters to empowering students to ask for help from their institution when they need it, rather than turning to what's now considered an illegal means of academic support in Ireland. And my own experience, students are really, really open to this conversation and want to know more. We passed a mandate at our student council to hold an entire week dedicated to the topic very early in the first semester each year. And then from my university, initially I was met with some hesitation. I think some academics felt like we were questioning their ability to assess effectively and in a safe and quality assured manner. And I don't think it was seen as a priority by staff previously. But with the foundation of our academic integrity network, which Dan is also part of, we have thankfully seen a huge shift in that conversation. So even over the last 12 months, we have gone from an area where we've had some difficulty to now, I'm delighted to say that locally we have a reference for a working group with senior management within our institution to go forward to ensure that this is an area of priority, and that it's not just the promotion over a week and it's not just an orientation, but that it becomes part of everyday life within higher education, and it becomes part of that conversation that is continually reinforced, and not as a threat, but as part of a culture.
Thank you, Megan. I think you made some really good points, and it's, of course, there was always going to be some resistance in the beginning, but just seeing how much it is growing, I think it's already a very positive thing. And also, I really, really am happy to hear that academic integrity can be threaded through the quality assurance system, because I think that's something really innovative and a very good example as well. My next question on the list is for Ozgur. You're a PhD student addressing the topic of academic integrity. Would you say that this topic is researched and discussed enough on your national level and among your colleagues internationally in general?
Thanks for the question, Peggy. I wish I could start with a big yes to this question, but unfortunately, academic integrity is still a neglected research topic here in Turkey. Recently, for my PhD thesis, I made a literature review on our national thesis database, and I used the keyword academic integrity, and my query returned with 0 results. So currently in Turkey, academic integrity is not well researched, but of course, it doesn't mean that it's not researched by anybody. Of course, there are several researchers who work on, especially on plagiarism, on contract cheating. But the main problem here at national level regarding academic integrity is that academic integrity is still in the minds of people. It's not institutionalized, and it's not covered enough in institutional or national policies. That's the first problem regarding academic integrity. And second, the present studies in Turkey adopt a punitive perspective towards academic integrity. I mean, the research studies, the blog posts or social media posts, they all have a punitive perspective for now. They just focus on how to detect and how to react academic integrity violations. So what's missing here is an proactive or an educative approach. Internationally, we know that there's a shift from punitive to proactive approach, but here we are still dealing with, we are still adopting a punitive approach, but I guess this is the natural way of how it goes. It starts with punitive and then turns to a proactive approach. Hopefully, in the future, we will shift to a more educative approach towards academic integrity.
Yeah, I hope as well, and I hope that also through participation that we can build this culture as well. So thank you for that, Oscar.
Thank you.
Sven, my question for you is, You have a position of the student's ombudsperson, which is a quite unique position on the international level and also on the national levels, I would say. So how would you even describe what you do? Is it challenging, and what are some of the topics that students discuss with you the most?
Certainly. It is a challenging position, as it is, as I understood, when preparing for this conference, quite a unique one to the European university tradition as well. I think that the position of the student's ombudsman or ombudswoman or ombudsperson, as you wish, is something that has come as a result, as an answer to quite a difficult and, not so free tradition of Eastern European universities that have experienced during the past, quite a tight grip on academic freedom. I think that it was a very positive step forward to institute a separate institution that's sole purpose was to safeguard student rights and in general actually to work on improving the quality of not only studying but the student life in general. However, this does create a certain dichotomy, and we could even say tension, between the student ombudsperson and the student councils, which are sort of a political body, which are directly elected by the whole student body, whereas I am indirectly elected. I'm elected by the very student council. So it is sort of a constant, I wouldn't say tension, but a constant question, what exactly are my competences and where exactly do the competences of the student councils begin? However, my main focus in my work is ensuring that certain structural inequalities that still do exist in the University of Rijeka, but in all Croatian universities, are somewhat tackled. Quite recently, we've managed to introduce the first protocol regarding how universities should conduct themselves after allegations of sexual harassment and other sexual misdemeanor. That is the first protocol in a higher education institution in Croatia, which is, of course, it comes perhaps 10 or 20 years too late, but still it was necessary for it to be developed. So perhaps my main line of work would consist of being there for students should they have any inquiries as to their rights, whether it be financial rights, so when it comes to scholarships, tuitions, and of course student nutrition as well. As you might know, we do have quite developed subsidized system when it comes to student nutrition in Croatia. And of course, when it has to do with academic issues, which is perhaps much more often when it comes to exams, papers, seminars, and so on. I do feel when it comes to academic integrity in general that I have to share the sentiment both Diana and Megan expressed, and that is that, and of course Özgür, that not enough emphasis is put in spreading the idea of academic integrity among students. And I would say it has to do, at least when it comes to Croatia, with this, I should say, perhaps relic of the past, that ethical values should be completely stripped away from the academic part, because if you put an ethical perspective to it, it is considered unprofessional. And I truly believe the contrary. There is no way of being a true professional without incorporating ethical values, and that includes academic integrity as well.
Thank you, Sven. I think this was really comprehensive, and I'm sure that this is only a small part of the things that you are doing, because I know how much the students work on this topic in Croatia. I have the question for Diana and Megan. How did COVID-19 change something in terms of the academic integrity for you? How do the students upkeep the academic integrity in their homes, in the virtual surroundings? Is it hard, or how do you tackle it?
Megan, would you like to go? Will I go?
I don't mind. You can go on ahead.
Perfect. So when COVID hit, it was very close to the assessment period. And of course, this kind of forced everyone to be as creative with their approach. But I think what really helped is being flexible with assessments and actually showing us that we don't need things to be the old-fashioned, theory exam way, but we can be more creative and flexible with our assessments. And while COVID challenged us in many different ways, our accrediting body was very accommodating when it came to assessments, and therefore each institute had a very much flexible approach to be creative and to think outside the box to accommodate students that wouldn't have necessarily been accommodated prior to COVID. During the move to online, I think one piece that was extremely important was the communication around academic integrity and communicating with the students' body. It was also to do with providing mitigating policies and no disadvantage policies, and giving students the opportunity to ask questions. So, including walk clinics, extra tutorials, online forums, and more importantly, engaging students, because what we found is that when you engage students, they're less likely to take part in academic misconduct. And while I'm on the question here, or while I'm on stage, I'd just like to go back to a question that was posed in the chat around students' attitudes. And yeah, integrity is an attitude, but however, we need to take into consideration that most of our students don't experience academic integrity prior to coming to third level, and that academic integrity is much more than just, will I plagiarize on my assignment? It takes into account the very dangerous black market that is the, essay mills and contract cheating. So it is a complex field, and I do truly believe that it should come from an institutional approach rather than, putting the onus on the student. Megan, sorry for taking so much time. I'll pass it over to you.
Not at all. I think you put it really well. And I think, COVID did have, it put a difficult spin on things, but it did really force us to have the conversation on academic integrity. It was a direct and full sudden change to online assessments. I kind of referenced, we were locked down in March 12th. And our assessments usually start mid-April. So it was a really, really quick turnaround. And universities and institutions were really concerned about cheating. Students having experts at home or parents that were fluent in the language they were studying. And you can see that is a genuine concern, but we had absolutely no real research into assessment designed to prevent these things. And I think one thing that was really highlighted is that staff aren't given enough support by institutions. And we really do have this culture where teaching is secondary to research. If you're to do really well in your job, research is the priority, not your teaching and learning methods and assessment practices. And I think that really came to the forefront throughout this, is that staff were kind of left with no time on their hands, having to redesign these assessments. And there has been huge concerns raised in relation to proctoring software that was enforced on several students, particularly in professional registration courses, which comes at huge costs to the university. That personally I would rather see going towards student support services, but that's the decision that was made at the time. And there's been a lot of research into the impacts that it can have on students with disabilities, saying that it disproportionately disadvantaged them. And of course, there's a concern about student safety and privacy within their own homes as well. So I don't think we're anywhere where we need to be yet, but I think we definitely need to support staff an awful lot more, because there's no foolproof way of ever preventing somebody cheating. I don't believe there will ever be a way where we can absolutely 100% prevent that. What we can do is adopt a really positive and inclusive culture where, we talk about this, and we're having this conversation now, and I think we'll all know more leaving this conversation, and we need to include students in that. And ultimately the main thing is that this further, highlighted the need of collaboration between staff and students and ensuring that everyone is on the same page.
Yes, thank you, Megan, for that. I think your words really resonated with me. I can see them on a poster somewhere, because I think it's true, and we can really, I think as students, all kind of connect to what you are mentioning as well. So we are learning from this experience, definitely. The next question I have is actually for Ozgur and Sven. Sven, so which types of the academic dishonesty do you often meet in your scope of work, and how do you tackle it? Where do you see a room for improvement? And is there something in particular you would like to wish to see changed?
Oscar, will you take the lead?
Okay, thank you, Sven. Thanks, Peggy. This is a great question because there's a specific academic misconduct type that I've been witnessing for the last couple of years. I'm a PhD student and an English language instructor at the same time. And as EFL teachers, we have a big problem with Google Translate. In my case, the majority of students use Google Translate in their writing assignments. And I believe that this is a serious academic misconduct type because students easily write their assignments in their native language, or they can compile text from the web and translate them using Google Translate. And I see Google Translate some sort of free contract cheating service because it's very easy to compile text and translate it to English and submit your work. And also, we know that the text matching software, text matching tools have a very bad performance on the translation, on catching the similarity in translation, translated documents. But of course, there's the other side of the coin here. Many studies show that machine translation tools are an effective supplementary tool in developing students' writing skills. And there's this side of the point. So I believe that we need empirical evidence that will help us draw a line between using machine translation as a support tool or as a form of academic misconduct. So this is a serious problem in language classes. And I always feel the need of having an evidence-based guidelines on how and how much students should use machine translation tools in their assignments. Also, I'd be happy to read our listeners' ideas about this topic in the chat. Thank you.
Well, I could definitely continue along the path that Oscar began with. I would say that academic integrity in Croatia is perhaps most influenced among students, of course, is most influenced by the fact that it is there isn't much emphasis put on it among academic staff and the academic community. So when it comes, for example, to plagiarism, that's an issue that plagues the Croatian academic community. And so, of course, there is not much talk about academic integrity among students when it is obviously lacking in the scientific and the academic community itself. So it's a structural issue that has to be tackled top down. And it's very difficult for students to be the front runners in this campaign, given our unfortunately subordinate position that we hold in, well, the majority of higher education systems in Europe and the world as well. However, that doesn't mean that we should stand idly as we see practically the whole system being corrupt. I do believe that student bodies and institutions that are similar to the one that I'm currently holding, such as the student ombudsperson, should have an active role in at least inciting and having the universities open the discussion about academic integrity. It is, however, very difficult. And the thing is, when it comes to my country, to Croatia, it is a widespread problem that not only pertains to the academic community, but to the public space in general, where we have a very high degree of plagiarism and a certain, I would say, even benevolent view when it comes to the mentality of the people to plagiarism. It is not viewed as severely and unfavorably as it is in Western countries. And that is something that takes years, perhaps even generations of thorough education to change.
Thank you very much for your points. I think they are very, very interesting and very useful for us. And I see also that our chat is filling up with questions as well, which is really good. So we still have a small amount of questions for our panelists, and then I'm going to read the questions to you, and maybe we can run through them and answer them as well. So my next and last question for Diana and Megan is, You have a legislation on academic integrity, which was passed quite recently. Can you maybe introduce it to us a little bit and tell us what an impact it made?
Okay, so the new legislation which was brought in Ireland is in 2019, the Quality and Qualification Ireland brought in an act called the Qualification and Quality Assurance Amendment Act, which allows QQI, the accrediting body, to prosecute essay mails and any other form of academic cheating. I guess the main key changes will allow QQI to prosecute anyone who assists in academic misconduct and establish a national scheme for protection of enrolled learners, in the event of a sudden closure, which is very convenient considering not even a year later we close our physical doors. And on the back of this, a national academic integrity network was also established, which Megan is also a part of, which has 3 subgroups. The first group aims to identify and agree common definitions and establish a national lexicon of academic integrity. The second group looks at establishing the nature and extent of current academic misconduct in Ireland as a benchmarking exercise and develop appropriate and effective prevention strategies, while Group 3, which is the communication group, aims to develop the communication strategies and plans to support the work of the whole network in raising awareness of AI and academic misconduct and related issues among students across the full higher education sector. I believe that this new legislation, I don't know what's happening with my English today. I believe that this new legislation has started a conversation which wasn't taking place prior to this. And if you want change, as it was previously mentioned, you start from the top-down approach. I think we need to recognize that students aren't a threat to our education system. It's these essay mills and these black markets that are a threat. This network is a really innovative, I guess, approach in combating academic misconduct in Ireland. And it meets every couple of weeks, and we discuss any updates that are happening in the network. So I guess the point here again is that definitely if there's a change in anything, and especially when it comes to a national movement, it should start from top down. For example, with our accrediting bodies, which we all are going to definitely listen to when they make any kind of calls. And the recent work consists of making an action plan on what's next. So yeah.
Thank you, Dana. Megan, you want to add something?
I think Dana really covered it all. They covered all bases, but I guess it's brilliant. It's something that we've really welcomed, and I think the important thing to know is how sophisticated these services are. To give an example, an awful lot of students get targeted on LinkedIn, get personalized messages, or we've also had cases where these companies have infiltrated course group chats, or will blackmail students saying that they will tell their university that they used this service unless they give them details of the upcoming assessments for people within their course. So it really is, it's incredibly malicious and a great danger to students' future. And I think we just really need to continue working together in collaboration as opposed to catching people out, because these students are at their most vulnerable when they're engaging with these services and they're being directly targeted, which is really awful to see. So I'm just really looking forward to continuing this work and just really welcome this legislation. I think it's something we're all very proud to be part of. I think we're one of the first in the Western Hemisphere with something like this. So it's onwards and upwards from here.
Thank you. That really sounds amazing. And I hope that other countries also follow this example. It's really nice to see it developing. My last question for Sven, and maybe it's just more for you, but because in your Croatian example, there seems to be quite a synergy between students' involvement in academic integrity issues and the professionals. Is it like that in practice as well in your local or national system? How is the accountability for academic integrity breaches assured?
Well, there's quite a simple answer to that. There aren't. In my 2-year tenure now as the student ombudsperson, I have witnessed not a single disciplinary proceeding against a student or against a member of academic staff for plagiarism or exam cheating. And I know as a fact that is a widespread practice, at least when it comes to writing seminars or essays or different take-home assignments. That just goes to show that it is not enough emphasis, actually no emphasis at all, is put in the Croatian academic community on combating this malicious practice. Just as comparison, so you see, I wouldn't want to paint too grim a picture of Croatian higher education, of course, but I do think that we should criticize uncompromisingly certain things that we find unacceptable. However, the cases that I did have were when we had students who are members of faculty collegial bodies that run the faculties. We had disciplinary proceedings against student members who criticized certain members of staff, and they were being disciplined or attempted to be disciplined for insult. So that's the kind of thing I'm dealing with. Instead of the real issue that should really trouble the academic community and the university community, and that is academic integrity. That's why we're all here. And the thing is, even though the Croatian higher education system is conceived as highly democratic, and it truly is on paper, this system was put forward in a society that is still not used to democratic principles and the workings of a democracy. So in theory, yes, we do have a very high degree of student participation in running a university, in running a faculty, a very high level of democracy in all institutions, but it is virtually and effectively non-existent, as you're always told what to do and what to think. And should you disagree, of course, you wouldn't face direct consequences, negative consequences, but it would be something that would be socially and ethically frowned upon. And that especially hits the students hard, as they're not in an equal position with their counterparts, the academic staff. And so this truly is a structural problem, and something that both Diana, Megan, and Oscar have repeatedly mentioned, and myself, is that we have to tackle this issue top down. It has to actually become a political position. It is not something that the academic community, unfortunately, it seems to show, has the internal strength to battle on its own. It has to have a sort of an input from the outside and a show of political will that this is unacceptable and has to be stopped.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sven, for sharing these concerns. I think that many people can actually relate to this. I think we can now go to the questions from our participants. Unfortunately, our time is quite limited, so I would ask you maybe to answer in one sentence, just to be able to kind of pass through all of the questions. So I see that Thomas also shared some concerns about the QA and its relation to the academic integrity, but I saw also that Zinat and the others were kind of debating a little bit in the chat. So I think maybe we can skip this question. I have to say, maybe of course we think of academic integrity as integrated in the quality of education, but not in the process of quality assurance as a process that it is, I would have to say. But I think that this is another debate we can have during a lunch break, because it's quite a passionate topic. So I think that it needs a little more discussion on this. Okay. Then we have a question from Hairula. You mentioned institutionalization of academic integrity. What about cases where there is institutional resistance to academic integrity? According to your experience, what other ways are possible to address this issue on campus? Who would wish to answer? Just open your mic.
I don't mind taking one for the team. So in terms of combating or resistance, I think from an Irish context, we have the legislation, which I think is a major driver. The network has a number of institutes in it, most of whom are the quality assurance is accrediting their degrees. So participation rates are high. And so the again, top-down approach, they are driving it from top-down. So institutions do sort of have to accommodate and listen and host events and put the information out there. I think while I'm on the information section, there was topics question that asked how can we promote that between the student body, and it is information, releasing as much information to students so that they don't find themselves in a situation where they're being blackmailed by SA mills. So that's one of my suggestions. And then in terms of promotion, on-campus promotions, I think again, it would be easy if we were on campus physically, where you can give out flyers, you can talk to students, you can have dedicated representatives that just deal with academic integrity, or even a department or a working group that can deal with this and that can release the information out there. So again, it's all about information getting out to the students, and not just the information getting out there, but for the students to actually understand the information that they're receiving.
Thank you, Diana. I think we can go to the next one, just to cover a little bit more. Okay, just a second. Do you feel that the technology companies providing services should provide workshops or guidance on academic integrity, and how we can all speak to students and staff?
I'd be happy to come in on that one. I have a possibly controversial opinion in saying absolutely not. We need to have this support in-house. We're moving towards a world of digital learning and digital experience and more open access to higher education. We need pedagogical experts that work in the field of technology. And it's something we wholly lack at the moment. There is no crossover, there's no collaboration. And we've even found locally having to turn to our computer science department for guidance. That's not good enough. And our IT services, I think, nationally have been stretched far beyond what they could have ever been asked to do previously. And I think our education institutions need to step up and treat this as a priority, because we need to have oversight on academic integrity for quality assurance reasons, to ensure that we can stand over the degrees that are being handed out at the end of the year, for student experience and engagement, for assessment design, which I touched on earlier. We can't do that in a silo. If we are expecting software companies to come in and give training to an institution, that's a one-off, that you're not incorporating it within the culture, within the institution, and having it be a core part of what you do. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, staff are under so much time pressure as it is, but we need to move away from that and the reallocation and distribution of work, and work with postgraduate students more and pay them for the work that they do. I'll throw that one in there while we're talking about it. And ensure that it becomes part and parcel. Digital learning isn't going anywhere. So we need to ensure that staff are equipped with the skills and have institutional based supports that anyone can turn to whenever they need them, because it's not something that just comes up once a year.
Thank you very much. I also see that there are lots of questions, lots of comments agreeing with Ozgur and some points that you made based on the use of Google Translate and it needing to be sanctioned. Do you want to elaborate more, share more? Because we see that there are also some other concerns where the students actually have to write in a foreign language. Do you see, from your perspective, Ozgur, maybe how can this be tackled?
Actually, the main problem with Google Translate is that students are not aware that this is an academic integrity violation. In our recent study, we collected the responses of students and asked them if this is a problem using machine translation tools or not. And the majority of students say that, no, this is not a problem. This is what we always do. They are not aware of the fact that using machine translation is a problem. So first, I think the first thing we should do is to raise their awareness on using the correct usage of machine tools in language classes. That may help, I guess.
Thank you, Ozgur. I think that this would really help, because I think many people don't take this into perspective, not only students who are just starting,
That's
but
right.
also others. Then we have the question from Irene. What can be done to support students being blackmailed by SA mills?
I can also take that one.
Yeah.
So this blackmailing issue is a real problem, and it's also a crime. It's not just an academic integrity violation, but it's a crime. And there are many students who are blackmailed by such contract cheating companies. And definitely we need to give professional support to these students. And that's one side. And the other side is we need to discuss more on how to prevent this. Many students, as far as I can see, are not aware that they can be blackmailed by such companies, or contract cheating services can blackmail them. First, I think in this point, we can rely on the power of social media. I really think that social media is a great tool to raise the awareness of students, because this is where students at. I know that there's a growing body of literature studies on contract cheating, but we are, as AI scholars, we are on journal papers, but students are not there. Students are social at social media, but we are not there. So I believe that we need to create content on social media that shows students the issue of blackmailing. We need to show that students can be blackmailed by contract cheating services on social media by creating content. As far as I can see, that Diana is trying to do that, and I see that this is a really valuable effort. Sometimes students' efforts on social media may have bigger impact on promoting academic integrity than the papers we published on journals. So in this issue, raising awareness on blackmailing, I think we can create more content on social media that may help to mitigate the problems.
Thank you very much, Oscar, for your elaborate. Yeah, Sven, do you want to add something?
Just pitch in for a second. Oscar just gave me an idea. It has to do actually when it comes to enhancing or entrenching this idea of academic integrity among students. This concept of having students participate in student journal editorial boards or scientific journal editorial boards, which is something, of course, much more characteristic for the American scholarly tradition. I think it's a very, very positive method of having students directly involved in academic work, assessing and being in contact with academic work. I think it would enhance greatly this sense of the importance of academic integrity and how it should be scrutinized, constantly checked, and implemented. So I think that is something that is quite lacking in the European higher education, the level of student participation in scientific journal publication as is in the United States.
Yes, thank you, Sven, for that. I really see that our time is running out, so we have to close this panel, but I would once more like to thank you, but also thank all of the attendees of this session, because I think it gave us a lot to think about, and also a lot of support, which is always nice to see, because I think that we as students are always trying to be recognized and trying to be supported to different channels. So just seeing this very collaborative community also makes us go forward. I wish you all to have a really good rest of the conference. I hope that we will see each other a lot in the next few days, and do feel free to reach out to us. I would also like to mention that European Network of Academic Integrity has recently also opened the working group for students. So just promote the group, ask them to join. We are open the entire year, and I'm sure that you will see all of our panelists working and collaborating through this group as well. Thank you, and have a really, really good rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.